Okay. Hey, how y'all doing? My name is Demetrius Holt, and I'm here with
Richard Sutton. I thought you were going to intro me.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not gonna do that.
All right. I was like,
no, we're off the cuff here for a little bit. But my name is Demetrius, like I said before, and we are known as He-Man and Man-at-Arms from the Masters of the Universe. We have been blessed with the ability to reach a lot of people with this cosplay. Okay, we are a part of a crew that happens to be about 65 people strong. It started with this cosplay that I'm wearing now, and then BlurredCon of 2019, we decided to build a small group to see what we could do. And that group consisted of Richard, myself, Wendell,
Eric.
Yeah, Eric and Lynn Marie. Between the five of us and a very select few of talented photographers like Nigeria Chambers from, I should write this stuff down.
Yeah, Nigeria Chambers, a big gold belt.
Thank you. See, that's why you're here, to help me
Chris Powell.
Chris Powell from Three Black Geeks.
Yep.
And Harry Crossland, who is also known as the Through the Eyes of H Photography.
Did you mention Michael?
No, I was going to get to him.
All right.
But yeah, the video that you saw before this was made by Legend of Micah, who is a videographer that is super talented, and he's all over the con circuit, and we really do appreciate his help from that, because that was a ridiculous amount of reach that his video was able to get to us. So yeah. So why are we here? The name of this panel is supposed to be the affecting social change through nerdom, right? But it's kind of morphed a little bit because of the opportunities that we have ahead of us. With this Afropunk panel, we have the ability to reach a lot of people with the message of the proliferation of minorities within mainstream media. That has been my platform for the last 2 years now, and I've seemed to be making some headway. With the inclusion of my friend Richard here and so many others, we have seen the impact of this cosplay and their cosplays, and we are trying to make sure that we get the message out to Mattel that we would like to see more Black and brown faces within the action lines of their properties. So this panel here is to make sure that we get everyone aware of what we're doing, what we have been doing, and why we're doing it. So, Richard, let me hear from you how you first got into anything nerdom and how you got into this role here.
So super easy. As much as all of us just found a comic book, picked up a comic book. A lot of us were stay at home in the 90s. So when you turned on the TV, X-Men, 2 p.m. came on, classic. You knew what you were going to get. You knew exactly what you were waiting for. And it was heroes. It was heroes that were dealing with challenges. And yet we didn't know it, especially at our young age. It was challenges that we were going to end up facing soon enough. And so after I got hooked on stuff like that, just X-Men and then Power Rangers, Big Bad Beetleborgs, VR Troopers, it just kept breeding in me. And so later and later, I was like, let me get a comic book. And finally, I picked one up about 15, 16 years old. I got Captain America issue 1. And then I saw a graphic novel. And so I grabbed that. And then I grabbed the graphic novel, volume 1, which was Captain America. And then volume 2 was Winter Soldier. And that was pivotal. I got to see Captain America. The first page you open up, you see Cap finishing a 10-mile run. He was in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I was like, oh my gosh, I know that base. I know all this stuff. And super enough, I definitely jumped into grabbing it, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. But nerdom specifically, cosplay, now that's a different story. That took me about 10 more years from that age before I even felt comfortable that I even knew about it. I thought cosplay was white peopling. I thought it was Star Trek, and I thought it was only Star Wars, and that's it. And so learning that we actually had a space where people actually existed, and it wasn't just, Klingons and space up there, it was definitely a brand new version for me to step into and find myself. And my very first cosplay was Guardian. And it was amazing because he was the very first hero in DC Comics. And at the same time, I learned about him. I learned that Martin Luther King spoke on nerddom and Star Trek, and how they got to show us being a part of Star Trek in general, that we were doctors and scientists in space hundreds of thousands of years. And this was in the 60s, and no one had been shot. I was like, what's happening? So learning all this at the same time, I was like, I have to start cosplaying. And then, of course, you start to figure out who you are. And much as I always say, you learn these different heroes and who they are, and you want to be like them. And then you learn the only hero that you need to be is you. And so easy enough, I started to push that message on kids and dressing up, and especially becoming a man-at-arms last year. I got to show my classroom and every classroom in my school, which is 260 kids, the video that we made that you guys got to see in the beginning of this, which was intense. And they're like, oh my God, that's you. Oh my God, that guy looks awesome. Who's that ghost? This is cool. And I saw their faces change, and like, there's heroes that look like us. There's heroes that literally don't even just look like us, that are us, that I know this is my teacher. And this guy he's here. And this guy has a giant sword and a mace, and blew their minds. And then I watched the video like 800 times. Either way, that's probably like a third of the views that it got. But definitely, that was my intro step, and pretty much my gathering of nerddom, of just stepping into nerddom itself.
Okay. Now, see, when I was approached to do this panel, thanks to Hilton from BlurredCon, he wanted to make sure that we got across to the Afropunk audience that our worlds intersect. You know, they have an alternative fandom of between music and poetry and everything under that umbrella. Well, we have something that is almost the same. You know, it just happens to be based in comics and sci-fi and the like. So as far as my introduction, I've been indoctrinated, born into it, because my mom was a Trekkie. You know, that when you talking about the 60s Star Trek, my grandmother had my mom watching that because my grandmother had a crush on Spock. Lo and behold, in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek series, who does Spock end up with? A black woman. So it was kind of like always in the ether, right? So yeah, I'm the baby of the family. So my brother and sister, they introduced me to what they could. Coming up, Transformers, Robotech, Astro Boy, all of the, I mean, they go, you know, I mean, like all of the original anime between Ninja Scroll and so much more. There was no escaping it from me. And it was something that I lived and breathed. I was always into Greek mythology. I was always into people or entities that were more than godly. So it just made sense for me to gravitate towards mutants. And that was my thing. Sure, Superman was cool, but there was something more relatable about a mutant who had to pay a bill, or like Spider-Man.
And that's exactly, that's exactly what
that's our thing. So I was always into comics. I read them as much as I could. I started out in the What If comics from Marvel. So I didn't really have like the traditional origin stories. I got everything that was off kilter, which is something that you're going to see from the Marvel Cinematic Universe here soon on Disney Plus. You better plug that. So anyway,
that's true.
So yeah, and as far as cosplaying goes, I had always been into Halloween. I was always that type of person that would go to the nines when it came to Halloween.
Too much.
Yeah,
too much.
You know, and
$300-$400 for one night. I dressed up as a zombie, got pieces out of my head. People are like, "Why are you spending so much in one night?" I was like, "You don't even notice that like cosplay exists in that point. You're just kind of like, it's Halloween. This is all I can do is give everything to this one costume." And then when you find out about it, I mean,
the thing, I didn't know cosplay was a thing until, I was going to comic book conventions, but I was never really paying attention to people who were dressing as characters. In 2017, my life changed and I decided to do something completely different than bodybuilding. And I went as Kratos to AwesomeCon 2017 as my first cosplay. And that kind of like raised a lot of eyebrows because no one knew who I was. And apparently the community has been established for so many decades. And so when someone like myself just says, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it the way that I do it, and they don't know me, then they tend to want to get to know me. And I know that sounds kind of cocky. I know that sounds kind of arrogant, but I'm just that kind of person where if I'm going to do something, I'm not going to half-ass it. So, I take my time with my cosplays. I take my time with, planning things out and trying to make sure that that I present the best version of the character that I want to present. And it just so happens to be either screen accurate or lore accurate. So we're going to move on from that to making sure that we convey why or how this cosplay became a vehicle for a message. Do you know exactly why you decided that this was the cosplay that you felt like was going to convey something that was meaningful to either yourself or to children or to people of color?
So definitely. And it's funny because to keep us on track and at the same time double back, you started your first cosplay in 2017. And then what year did you do this one?
2018.
I started cosplay in 2017. And then we did this in the year after, 2019. I was like, you know what? Man at Arms. And what brought me to this one especially is the other cosplays that I did. I always make jokes. I cosplay for Black men. That's pretty much my niche. It was like Guardian people, Black men knew who I was. Not everybody else, but Black men who saw themselves as other Black men were like, oh, you're from Teen Titans, you're Young Justice. But Man at Arms crossed everyone. Like literally people from every world, every country. They're like, yo, I know Man at Arms. And for me, especially being a military person and seeing the military portrayed through him and just his essence, and I'm like, you know what? This was not only a childhood guy. I've always thought to myself that like he's everybody that everyone gets to see on the sidelines, and at the same time, you're like, he's the master of technology. He's on the top of his game, but just because he's not in the center of it, you still recognize him because what he does is what he does. You do what you do, and you do it to the very best. And I was like, you know what? That's it. You don't have to be in the center of anything. You can do everything you can and put 110% because you have to start where you are with what you have, because what you have is plenty. And I was like, dang, if that's not Man at Arms, I don't know what is.
You see, and what he just highlighted is everything that we've been wanting as far as, and when I say we, I'm talking about people of color, is representation within the characters that we see on mainstream media, whether it be television or whether it be movies. Now, to dovetail from what he just said, as far as how he was able to identify with a character based on their characteristics, based on their morals, based on everything that they've embodied, when I got struck by what it meant to have a Black face on a wall somewhere was when I happened to see three Black children pointing to a poster of Black Panther back in 2018, right? Where the kids were pointing to either one of the characters, either one of the actors, and saying, that's me right there. No, that's me right there. And the last time anybody of any kind of child, of color could do that was probably Meteor Man. Like a 1992 or 1993 film that was a comedy that was kind of like, nowhere near serious enough as to be taken serious enough. Like we couldn't do that with Blade because Daywalker, I mean, cool, but he kills vampires. That's kind of
a very niche.
Yeah, that's not not very kid friendly.
A gun and a sword, like
right,
not the same 6-year-old.
Right. So in order to have characters that represent the best of us, we had to wait until 2018 for Black Panther, and that is, it's disheartening, but then it's not expected. I'm not trying to go on a whole Lovecraft Country or Black AF, trend here where everything I'm going to say is because of slavery, but because of slavery, we have had to
facts.
We have had to be twice as better to get half as much, and for us to finally get a major movie, something that reaches across the entire globe that represents us in a very regal and refined fashion, it struck me. So therefore, I started cosplaying as Black Panther, and 2018 was a whirlwind year for me. As far as being able to go on red carpets, in character, and like actually be at cons with children and throw up the Wakanda salute. It was something that brought us all together, and it was something that made me feel like, you know what, let me cosplay the one character that I've been wanting to cosplay since I was 4 years old, but the way that I wanted to do it, and that was He-Man. I knew how to do the diet. I had been bodybuilding for 3 or 4 years at that point. I've done like nine to 10 shows. Came away with hardware out of 6 of them, won championship out of 1 of them, and I knew what to do. All right, so October of 2018, Baltimore Comic Con, I debuted this cosplay, and it sent ripples that I didn't even think that it was going to, because it was only going to be a one-time deal. Because honestly, I don't like dieting. Who likes dieting? You like dieting?
No, the cut is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that. I know how I am after cutting carbs because I'm used to it by now. This dude here,
I was like, whatever. Everybody knows me after I cut.
Emotional light-skinned dude. As much as anyway, I've had private conversations with this guy, and I had to tell him to calm down. It's carbs, but it gets like that. Like, it was totally understandable, But yeah, it was supposed to be a one and done cosplay, and from the reception that went all the way from October until January, and then it popped again in 2019, the 28 Days of Black Cosplay. My photo from Ryan D. Davis, who's also known as Gimme Cookie on Instagram. That one photo just kept popping up.
Yeah, Twitter, Reddit.
Yeah,
it was crazy because I know you did it in July. Was it Baltimore Comic Con or August?
Baltimore was October.
And then it was like legit. I felt like January. We're still seeing like just resonance of like boop Reddit, boop Twitter, and I was like, that's crazy. I feel like it was a couple months ago. And then it was just like, no, like everybody was like, have you seen it? Have you seen it? Have you seen it? And I was like, this thing is everywhere.
So that was when I was able to put the pieces together. It's like, we got something here. This is going to be the vehicle that's going to convey the message that we need more representation of Black and brown faces within mainstream media. And so moving forward through 2019, we hit BlurredCon. And that's when I talked to my friend Eric the Smoke, Moran, Lynn, Marie, Wendell. We came we came together for a photo and video shoot, and that was at BlurredCon a line drawn in the sand. We were going to make a stake for ourselves and say, this is what we need in our lives. We need more representation of Black people within this universe, because it does span across generations. It does span across the entire globe. And I'm not trying to replace He-Man, but then when you think about it, He-Man is just like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Anybody can be underneath that mask. Anybody can have the power if they're worthy. Same thing with Thor. And for people to say or feel as if, there are no other versions of He-Man that are valid, then you don't really understand the property. You don't understand how Mattel, even marketed the property back in the day, because it was all about, I have the power. Those words.
Trying to catch up with you, I said.
Right.
It's too fast.
Right.
Go ahead.
Those words were something that came out of mouths out of everyone. And then when She-Ra came out, it wasn't just little white girls that were saying that by the honor of Grayskull, or for the honor of Grayskull. Everybody of every color that would happen to resonate with a character that wanted to feel more powerful knew what to say.
Yeah, every character. It didn't matter. I mean, Batman, Spider-Man, Superman. It didn't matter. Like, I was ripping off dress shirts at 6 years old, and when you have that and you start to notice the iconic ability that a hero has, there's more spotlight shined on them than there is Luke Cage. No kid is running around yelling "Sweet Christmas," right?
Mhm.
It's adults. Black Lightning doesn't have a catchphrase. These characters that we were given, that were created in our image, didn't have that same iconic catchphrase. The Man of Steel, for liberty, truth, justice, the American way, wasn't said by those same things. I definitely feel that wholeheartedly.
Right. So moving on, as far as the whole purpose of this appeal, okay, this has been a rough year for everybody, you know, between the coronavirus, between job losses and everything. This has been a tough year, so I'm not going to take that away from anybody. But what I will say is it's been really difficult for people of color, and especially Black folks. And it's because we have been
disenfranchised.
No, we've been inundated with so many images of death at the hands of the police, and whether it be you look at the stats and be like, oh, it's disproportionate here and there, whatever the case may be, we are dying more than anybody else within this country at the hands of public officials. So in my mind, I'm playing a little bit of three-dimensional chess here. So follow my logic here, right? If a child who is Caucasian is seeing multiple images of Black and brown faces that are in a hero role, then maybe, just maybe, they will grow up with the mindset that maybe that we are not as scary or as threatening as their predecessors have thought us to be upon sight. We had the issue of Tamir Rice. Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old boy in an open carry state that had a toy gun. The police rolled up on him, and within 2 seconds, they murdered him without question. And then the first things they said was, well, he looked like a 30-year-old man to me. There was no question because he didn't look like them, right? They couldn't identify him in a way that they would identify a white teenager or a white child as someone that was actually a child. So it's my thinking that if companies like Mattel and Hasbro and every other, or Fisher Price, if they have images of Black and brown folks in their action lines, in their toy lines that would have children who are predisposed to professions like lawyers, judges, and police officers, if they have it in their minds that there are children out there, or that there are images of Black people that are not threatening images like drug dealers or corner boys or pimps or whatever, then maybe they will be a little slower. They'll be a little bit slower to pull that trigger. So I've got a little boy now, all right? I've got a 1-year-old son, and the first thing that comes to my mind is what happens if something happens to his daddy, or what happens to him? What will I do? Because for all intents and purposes, that little boy is my heart. And I was put into a situation earlier this year where the police were called on me while I had my child in my arms. And the only thing I could think of is if I run, if I leave, then the story will be morphed and changed to something that's not true. But then if I stay, we may not make it, So I have an invested interest in making sure that Mattel and whomever else can abide by their promise that it's time to play fair, that they change the way that they do things when it comes to our representation. Because I cannot sit here and fathom what would happen if one of us is taken out. I mean, if one of my friends is taken out, like there's just too many possibilities that are real. They're not even hypotheticals anymore. You could just be going to stop a fight, and then you get shot in the back 7 times. while you're walking away. So there's no way that you can tell me, oh no, that won't happen. Oh no, don't worry about that, because it's happening. It's been happening, but now we have video evidence of it. So another reason why I have Richard here is because he works with children all the time. And I have to ask him, like, in your experience, do you feel like, because I'm pretty sure the children in your school are multiracial,
Mhm.
right? Do you see any hints of biases or any kind of, leanings one way or another from, from children of color or children or Caucasian children?
So I have had several experiences with with children in the classroom. I've had one where a child has openly, we have projects which every kindergartner does, and they help you. It's for creativity. They take out a piece of paper and we tell them all to draw their own playground. And one child, now this is several years ago, but one child actually said that yes, he drew his playground and he said no one with a darker skin color than you can play on this playground.
Wow.
And so of course we had to like tell my director, we had to talk to that parent, had to figure out why this child would say that. And he said, you're allowed on my playground, but you're only allowed to clean.
Wow.
The mother was shocked. The father was like, oh, well, I've never heard of that. And then you take into to any type of consideration, this child is 5 years old. It's a pre-K. This is literally, he's starting pre-K. He's been in pre-K maybe 3 months. No reason for this. Understanding that there is that, and then I had a 5-year-old just this past year. I just implementing in Black heroes. I used Sean Allen's on Facebook. You can find him on IG. He drew Black Lightning, Miles Morales, Luke Cage, Bishop, Black Panther. He put them all together in a picture, and I took the picture. I printed it off. He mailed it to me. I put it on the wall, and one of my kids saw them, and all the kids would play, and every day I have them clean up. They took the toys, the normal Avengers that have no black characters. We had just Black Panther, and they've raised them all up exactly how he wrote on the picture, how he drew the picture. And I was like, that's crazy. I didn't notice that subtle imagery of me taking a picture that an artist did on commission on his own. I put in my classroom, and these kids saw it every day. I put one on the sign out sheet for the parents, and I put one in their block corner. And these kids saw it every day to where they were like, this is how the toys go. And they put them up with one fist in the air, every single last one of them. I actually have a photo of it. And I was like, that's how little it takes to go, these people are good people. These people are not judged on anything else besides they're here and they exist. And the children are like, awesome. So that open imagery, especially from Mattel, from Nickelodeon, I mean, I think of our childhood and I'm like, I loved Famous Jet Jackson. Again, it was a young Black kid that was positive. He went to work. He was a teenager. He acted. That's So Raven. Parents lived in the suburbs. Same thing again. We kept seeing this imagery, of young kids, of us, and that's how society got to see us. That we were just kids. It wasn't things happening. There weren't bad things. But now there are no heroes. Now you're not producing, enough production of these heroes, of people that look like us, that stand in front, that are positive images, that show us in a light to where kids can tell the difference. Now they just assume you're one way, everybody else is another. And it's definitely shocking.
So it's difficult to really fathom the reality of all of this, but this is what it is. So, I know Mattel to be a progressive company. They started in 1945, and like they had actual Black figure in 1968, one of the first Black figures ever made. And like did us during the race riots, I mean the civil rights era. So yeah, Mattel knows what it's doing. It knows what it should be doing and the power that it holds. So, this is like, I mean, I'm not a revolutionary. I am not like a serious activist because, I'm one of those people that I run a rat race. I work from paycheck to paycheck. I have to take care of a child. I've got responsibilities. So I can't be out on the lines, on front lines and protest and do this, that, and the third that others, who are warriors. I'm not going to take anything away from them, but I can't do that because I have something that I have to take care of all the time. So this here is my way in my lane our lane to try to affect change within our social space. So I've got, thanks to thanks to the appeal of this cosplay, followership on Instagram went up. I mean, I'm up to 11,300 followers that are genuine. They're not bought. Like, there's some cosplayers who buy followers, and they
I was like, was that an attack on me? Like,
no, not you. But there are others, I don't really care for, but I'm not going to talk about that. Anyways, but yeah, there are, there's an actual following and a fervent movement that want to support this, because it is important for our children and our future and as a whole. So as far as to segue into like our final point, the impact that we have made, I was going to have, I don't know if you've seen behind us the amount of artwork that artists have done without any commission money at all. They saw the cosplay, they decided they wanted to draw their own versions of it. Those versions of my cosplay have either become, designs that go on apparel, between hoodies and t-shirts. They've become stickers that people like. I've been getting them out to folks, and they've been sending me photos with them, stuck on the laptops where their children are doing their homeschooling right now during COVID. So many other, hell, He Soul, the writer of He-Man and the Masters of the Multiverse, a DC comic, he actually incorporated my cosplay in the creation of a new character that is a Black He-Man, and that's his sword right here. And so this sword, made by Aaron Lunger from Wasteland Creations, took the time to replicate the original drawing, not the drawing from Marcus Williams, but the original drawing from Tim Seeley that was just a note for the artist who did the comic book. And this thing is ridiculous, and I've also got a 5-foot long, sword of power here that does a lot of different things. And I'm not going to spend the time to do it right now because I'm going to make sure that we get this message across. And finally, oh man, everyone's name just kind of just comes out and just goes out of my head right now. But I have an actual. This is an actual He-Man custom by Joe Amato, who created this out of the kindness of his heart, where it's not just some off-brand version of Terry Crews or Samuel Jackson. I know you've seen those memes, but no, this one is actually me. And to have been a 4-year-old child playing with the white version of this, for me to have this as a 36-year-old man means the world to me, because it's something that I never thought would ever really happen, and it did. All because we have a message that means something to everybody. So, as far as the far-reaching impact of this cosplay, we know that Hasbro and Mattel and DreamWorks knows of us. Last year, I went to San Diego Comic-Con as a press associate with JVS. So you had to look them up on Instagram and YouTube. But I went on their behalf. I got a chance to interview the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. right before their final season in this cosplay. Met with Black Lightning.
Chris Williams.
Yes, Chris. Thank you. So I'm like, ooh.
I was like,
because I got pictures with the man, and it just I was like, Scooter. No, that's not Scooter.
It was Scooter. Yeah,
it was Scooter though. And like I was actually on the front row of the Hall H presentation of the Marvel panel just because of this cosplay. And then I was invited to PowerCon as the official He-Man of that year, and it was ridiculous, the reception that I was given. You know, they had never really had too many black cosplayers come to that convention, if ever, if any had ever. So for them to invite me, cover the hotel room, and just welcome me with open arms, that lets me know that the Motu, or the Masters of the Universe community, truly do care about diversity. And that's the thing, is like, if the fans are willing to spend the money to go the extra mile for it, why won't the company that gives them the product in the first place follow suit or lead the way? If this is what we are trying to do, to make that message known and to push forward, then we have been given everything that we could possibly want. This panel here is out to reach so many people, and I'm going to say this tonight, because I know that it's going to happen. But myself, Richard, and a few others within our crew are being interviewed by a writer from Men's Health. Men's Health magazine is a publication that is on the same level as Playboy or Reader's Digest. Will be, on the stands at 7-Eleven, Piggly Wiggly, Publix, Walmart, Walgreens, Shoppers, Safeway. This is the major crossover from being a niche demographic to being a mainstream demographic. We are pushing through where others have not been either able to push through or just weren't able to be recognized in the way that they should have been. Because there are a lot of cosplayers that are better than either one of us, but they're not seen because of slavery.
I'm sorry. Just toss that in there. There are certain doors that just don't get opened, and especially, I do think it's a huge play of learning how everybody works together, between yourself, with, like you said, you stepped out of bodybuilding, you stepped right into He-Man and was like, this is how I'm going to shake the world. And Eric Morin, who plays our Skeletor, 1,000 cosplays. This guy's always putting in work day and night, and that type of like craftsmanship, and the fact that he has the ability, every time he stops, he asks for help, he asks for what he has to do and who else he wants to work with. Lynn building her own cosplays, Wendell building his, and I mean, he said something like it was within 4 to 5 days. And what brought, the whole point is everybody brought something to the table that no one else expected. Mm-hmm. And I had to see Demetrius' He-Man, I had to see Eric Skeletor and Lynn's She-Ra, and then immediately I was like, I'm gonna be better than your He-Man. I was like, bump that.
This is my Vegeta.
Immediately stepped in to be like, this is how you find out where you fit in, is you test everybody else's metal and everybody goes, we're good, we're all the same, we're going to work together to push this message as strong as we can. And that's the only thing that we can do, is keep pushing, because at some point you learn that if everybody hits just as hard as you, you're all going to hit towards something else. And that's essentially what we're doing, is pushing this wall, pushing an entire area that didn't exist before, to where now you're like, oh, I have these pictures, I have t-shirts and mugs and lunchboxes and stickers, everything that world opened up for a version of us. And that's just an awesome thing to be a part of.
Right. So we're going to wrap this up some, but the whole idea of us making a push for everybody is that we know that we couldn't have done it alone. There's a lot of people who backed us, who supported us, who helped guided our message and made sure that we stayed on the path. And that's why we're here now. Nobody is interested in pulling the ladder up behind us and leaving anyone behind. If I can, bring my boy, if I could bring my homegirl, if I could bring, people whom I don't even like, if I could bring them along because they may appeal to somebody that need that type of representation, I'm gonna bring them along too. But this has always been a team effort. whether I started it or not, the people that have been around me have helped carry me forward. And so I just want to make sure that I thank them, that I let them know that they are appreciated, but we're going to make sure that we take this to the nine, take it to the hilt, because if we can make the appeal here at Afropunk and then make the appeal again in Men's Health and nothing still happens within Mattel, because Mattel was the ones who said on their Instagram post, it's time for us to play fair right after George Floyd was murdered. So if they were using that as a publicity stunt in order to just, save their stock prices, or get a little boon here and there, then that's going to be clear and apparent to everybody, and then we're going to have some decisions to make. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up now because I don't want to go over time. Just want to say thank you to Hilton at BlurCon. Thank you to Richard. Thank you to our engineer over there. But it's been awesome, and hopefully we can affect the change that we all want and need, so that our children can be as safe as possible. All right.
It's good enough for me. Good enough for you. Catch you guys when we catch you.
straight from the power of grayskull. Believe the master of the universe gets grateful. I'm so ferocious, chopping heads off with my battle axe. Got many faces, give them whiplash when I battle cats. A diabolical technology like Skeletor, but trained in the art of throwing you through the cellar door. I'm checking off my enemies until I get some more, with powerful beams that disperse from my ludicrous ball. Until the system falls, they families don't miss them all. Kiss them all goodbye, and I tried to warn all of them. I guess I really pissed them all. Peel the cap and twist them all. If you got homies, then call all of them. These bombs are ticking them all. Fans are ripping them off. Your CDs ain't purchased, people just borrow them. And me, I'm dismissing them all. Really insisting they all quit and hurry up before tomorrow. I've been appointed straight from the power of grayskull. Believe the master of the universe gets grateful. I'm so ferocious, chopping heads off with my battle axe. Got many faces, give them whiplash when I battle cats. A diabolical technology like Skeletor, but trained in the art of throwing you through the cellar door. I'm checking off my enemies until I get some more, with powerful beams that disperse from my ludicrous ball.